Before they were all-stars, before they were superstars, they were shooting stars. Now go back to school with the greatest players in tournament history in Shooting Stars of the NCAA Championships. See vintage footage of O'Neal, Worthy, Johnson, Leitner, Alcindor, Bird, Ewing, Manning, and Magic. Available wherever videos are sold. Some were champions. All were among the greatest players the NCAA basketball tournament has ever seen. Get ready to relive the majesty and the memories of March Madness in Shooting Stars 2 of the NCAA Basketball Championships. Chris Webber's NCAA tournament career was full of flash and flair, and with all the highlights, it would be a shame if he's remembered for one unfortunate moment.
Webber front court, Carolina with foul. He takes the timeout, Technical foul. Technical foul.
Everybody's made mistakes. That was just, I made a mistake that was 20 seconds that in life was minuscule, but in my sports arena was big. But it didn't make me any less of a player. It didn't make Michigan any less of a team. We lost the game. I was unfortunate. But we all made mistakes. I just made mine in front of, 20 million people.
With shaved heads and baggy shorts, Webber led 5 freshmen on an unlikely mission of capturing a national title.
I think I play with reckless abandon because I hate to lose. And like a mad dog, you have to play because I never want to leave a game saying I could have done more.
And no player did more than Webber to define the upbeat and excitable personality of Michigan's Fab Five.
All of us are fans of the game. If we had to play like robots like some teams do, we wouldn't have been as successful. I think intimidation can come through a lot of different factors, through looks, through good plays, through hustle. And when you've intimidated a player, I think you've broken them down to his weakest moment, and that's when they're most vulnerable. But every time I shoot the ball, I shoot it the way a fan would want to see it, as long as I wouldn't do something crazy. So I'm just trying to have fun. Check it out. When your back's against the wall, you gotta have confidence that you're gonna win. And that you're gonna have confidence that if you're not gonna win, you're gonna die trying. I can't play without emotion, so when things get down, that's when I get more emotional. And when you back us into a corner, that's when we come out fighting.
Even as a freshman, Chris Webber was an immediate star in the NCAA championships.
Chris Webber is one of the few athletes who lives up to expectations that are immense. Much was expected, and he delivered right out of the gate. He was an instant starter, an impact player. He, as all winners do, found ways to lead his team to victory. And he did it time after time after time.
Tournament time was prime time for Chris, who helped power Michigan to 5 NCAA victories in 1992 before losing the title game to Duke.
Chris Webber's a very, very athletic player. I think he was the key to their team because he would really fire the guys up.
Just picks up this Michigan team when Webber does something sensational.
He did whatever it took for our team to win, whether it was rebound, defend.
Webber steals the ball. Webber off to the races.
Or scoring.
Chris goes in, slams it through.
Chris was an aggressive player, a ferocious rebounder.
Webber, no doubt about that rebound.
He would go out and get everything, run on the break. He could shoot the three, he could pass.
How about that dribbling ability of Chris Webber? How about the behind the back and score it in a foul?
The next year, Webber and the Fab Five advanced to the Final Four again, where they beat Kentucky. In just 2 years, Chris Webber had left an indelible mark on the NCAA tournament, reaching 2 championship finals in his only 2 seasons at Michigan.
Chris was very gifted physically, but he combined that with the mental part. He had the biggest, surest hands of any basketball player I've ever seen.
What a catch! And look at the shot. What a catch! Powerful but yet soft hands.
A lob, spin, dunk. You know, I can just throw it up any kind of way. He find a way to catch it.
Look at this pass. Webber fields it. Dunk time.
You couldn't throw it anywhere near him and he'd not get a hand on it.
Stolen away by Webber.
Not only to catch it, but to control it and finish the play. That's one of the real strengths of a guy of this size.
Puts it up, too strong. Webber, that's going to count. Dragged to the floor, and Webber was so strong.
Well, I like the pressure of a big game. I have to step up in some way in a big game. I don't care if the coach puts me on the bench, then I'm going to have to step up by cheering, or I have to get an assist or score or rebound. I think good players thrive on being a part of that.
Well, you know the services have the means to teach someone who's still in his teens. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they'll take you, train you, show you the way. You'll work hard, get decent pay in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Serving your country's a real good start, helping pay for colleges and services part. Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. Future in doubt, shed that lead. Join the services and get ahead in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines. It's a great place to start.
In becoming one of the NCAA tournament's greatest players, David Robinson emerged from virtual obscurity.
It's amazing to think that in this day, when every high school basketball player is identified, scouted, evaluated.
You read all these scouting reports of who's the #1 recruit. Here's a guy, nobody even knew about.
Almost like one of those submarines that he captains, sort of slips through the defenses undetected.
David came in when we recruited him at 6'7", and then by the time he got there as a freshman, he was 6'9".
I had only played 1 year in high school, and I was just running up and down the court, trying to figure out the game.
By the time he was a sophomore, he was pushing 7 foot.
I just really had to learn the game as I was coming along.
He was obviously the best athlete that we'd had at the Naval Academy in a long time.
You always hear about guys that play at small schools and they're big and they can do stuff.
Nobody gave him credit until he started playing in some intersectional matchups that were important.
The first time I ever really saw him was at the World Games trials, and he was blocking people's stuff and dunking, and we were like, he's pretty good.
By the time I was a senior, we were sold out, packed every game.
What he did for Navy is a once-in-a-lifetime situation.
It's wonderful that a guy should go to such an out-of-the-way place, like the Naval Academy, and that they should have their little run in the tournament.
Where a player of that magnitude can take a group of players that are limited in total skills, but know how to play together.
Indeed, that was when David Robinson sort of stepped on the national stage.
I like challenges. I always tell guys, I say, hey, the popcorn's popping, lights are on, cameras rolling, so it's time to play.
David Robinson answered his first NCAA challenge in his first tournament game when Navy upset LSU in 1985.
I told the guys, listen, first of all, this team is tough. They're the Naval Academy, they're disciplined, they're smart. If you don't wake up and realize you're playing Navy, we'll be home before the sun sets. It was an afternoon game. We were back in Baton Rouge before the sun set.
But it wasn't until the second round of the 1986 tournament that Robinson and Navy truly took center stage.
We were in the Carrier Classic at the beginning of the year, and at that point we got beat, I think, by 18 or something. Didn't play particularly well, and I think they came in overconfident, thinking that they could do the same thing again.
He's got 3 men chasing him down. Robinson.
He just took advantage of all this quickness, his mobility, and his ability to catch the ball.
I mean, he just grabs the ball and absolutely just glides in the air. Nice pass to Trish. Robinson rejected it. Alexis rejected again by David Robinson. Oh, my word. What a play by David Robinson. Robinson with another block. He's taken over the game. Talk about the great players in the country. You better put David Robinson right at the top of the list. Robinson.
When Robinson was through, Navy had a 97-85 upset.
That Syracuse game was a tremendous game for us. And I think that was really the crossover point, for our program.
Down by 1 in the next round against Cleveland State, Navy knew where to go.
All the guys looked at each other, and we all kind of looked around, and then And everybody said, well, we're going to get it to you, David. I said, well, fine, do it. Whatever way it takes to score, whatever way it takes to win, I'm always up for that.
Watch for Robinson in the middle of the floor. Right there he is.
Going for the game winner. He got it.
I think he thrived on the big game. It was a big thing for all the Navy kids to be on TV. And when we got into the NCAA, we got into a TV situation, David really played maybe his best game.
Actually, Robinson's best game in the tournament came the next year in the opening round against Michigan. In what turned out to be the culmination of an NCAA tournament career, which saw him average 28.5 points per game, Robinson's last performance was his finest.
Looks like a bus, moves like a greyhound.
I think every time I touched the ball, I shot it just about. I think when you're going on a roll like that, a lot of times you don't really realize what you're doing, and there's no way I realized that I had 50 points.
I tried to have a lot of fun. If the defender played you left, you went right. If he played you right, you went left.
Position yet. Thomas, the other end, and he makes it.
I played inside, I played outside. I was able to handle the ball. I was able to shoot from outside, shoot from inside.
I believe that Isiah Thomas makes all pressure obsolete. He just goes right through it.
Isiah Thomas is one of the greatest players that's ever played college basketball. He was so naturally gifted.
Isiah missing off to Turner.
He started doing things, I think, when he was really small that some of us still haven't done.
2-on-1. Nice play, Isiah.
Here's a guy that will be one of the better small guards that's ever played the game.
Not only was he a good scorer, but he could make the other guys look better. So those are the great ones.
Isiah can take the ball to hoop as well as any guard has played in a long time.
Isiah Thomas, pound for pound, inch for inch, is about as tough-minded in competitive circumstances as anybody I've ever seen.
We were playing exceptionally good basketball going into Philadelphia. We were focused. We never even thought about the championship game. You just took it one opponent at a time.
That year, Indiana's opponent in the national semifinals was LSU.
Oh, what a player he is. Just a sophomore and a unanimous All-American.
And from the opening tip, Isiah was too much, leading the Hoosiers to a 69-49 victory and a national championship showdown with North Carolina.
A 6'1" sophomore from Chicago, Illinois, Isiah Thomas.
But in the first half of the biggest game of his life, Isiah came out cold, shooting just 1 of 7 from the floor.
Isiah Thomas can't connect.
The Hoosiers were losing at halftime, but they never lost faith in Isiah.
You just kind of sit there and it's like, no, this is a national championship game. That's not going to happen. And, Isiah won't let that happen to us.
I myself wanted to get extremely aggressive and take charge of the game and make sure that, we went out with the style of play that we had been playing for the last 2 months.
Let's just do one thing this half. Let's play 20 minutes of basketball our way. Let's go, fellas.
And a little child shall lead you is the cry of Indiana fans and how they love Isiah.
Isiah was tremendous in the second half. He came out with a winning attitude, and I think there was no way that North Carolina was going to deny the national championship from him or the team.
And he had that desire of never giving up, always doing his best. And he, I know, felt that he didn't have a very good particular first half and stepped it up.
Really by 3, there's Thomas again. Al Wood can't stop him. There's Isiah. Indiana can do little wrong. Into the promised land.
The second half, Isiah was just like a demon, man, a demon possessed by the basketball guy.
All alone, he's going to call.
Everything finally came together at that point. And, it was a tremendous feeling.
Thomas inside. Yes, sir.
Isiah Thomas obviously was the hub of our wheel, and played that way in the second half.
Isiah Thomas, when it comes down, Indiana will be champion.
I had put this tremendous burden of pressure on myself to win. It was a great release once we won the championship.
He could slash, he could dash, he could crash, but most of all, he could mash.
Monster mash, they call him.
I like to score. I like to have the ball in my hands, and I just don't like to be just considered one type of player.
He's a man amongst boys in there, it seems.
People like to come out to excitement. They like to see players dunk the ball, shoot the three, dribble and shake their man up.
Take a mash.
You know, in order to get a lot of fans like we do, you gotta give them a show.
Monster mash.
Jamal is a small forward who's got NBA three-point range. Puts it on the floor like a backcourt player.
Mash. He's too quick for big men, too powerful for the smaller ones. Big, strong, and he can shoot the threes. And does a nice job of massing folks. Into mash. That was body power.
Such a strong player with that added touch at the net.
A tower of strength.
Even if I make a mistake, I like to put it on my shoulders just to make something happen, be creative. You gotta give him a show.
Mashburn to say, get it to me and I'm gonna take over for a while. Monster mash.
He could do pretty much everything out there. Nice perimeter shot. He took the ball to the hole real well.
Take a mash.
In my opinion, the best player we saw all year. He could just beat you in so many ways, and he did.
Massing folks. Mash.
He can shoot.
So sweet.
Pass.
Beautiful.
Rebound.
Mash. Monster mash.
When you do it all equals out to a win.
Inside, outside.
I always pride myself in making something happen.
Hits another. I can't believe it.
I just like to play.
Another one. Jamal Mashburn. I give up. I give up.
The first taste of success for Jamal Mashburn in the NCAA tournament came in 1992, when he nearly led the Wildcats to the Final Four, getting to the regional finals against Duke and Christian Laettner.
I just went out there and played. I met the challenge of Christian Laettner, and he's All-American. I tried to prove that I was too.
Mashburn proved he could do it all, scoring 28 points from every spot on the floor.
Mashburn. He'll shoot one.
But in the closing minutes, Mash fouled out and was forced to helplessly watch the game-winning shot from the sidelines.
It was like slow motion. As soon as he caught the ball, I knew it was going in because he had such a perfect day. There's a lot of crying, but one play doesn't determine your whole season. He had a great season. He won 29 games that season, and a lot of teams can't say they did that.
A year later, Jamal was back. And in the early rounds of the tournament, Kentucky was unstoppable.
At the end of the season, with all our talent, we played really well. Everything was connected, and Coach Pitino put it together in one system. It was pretty much hell for everybody.
That's his third three-point basket.
Mashburn plays different roles every time out. One time he's a passer, next time he's a rebound, next time he's a low post player, perimeter player. He adapts to the defense that's being played on him.
In the Final Four, the Cats again relied on Mashburn.
I always play well in the big games. I like the challenge. I like to play against good players. And, you know, I just was lucky enough to have one of the great games in my college career.
Right side Mashburn, one-on-one move, goes under, lays it up and in. Great NBA-type move by Jamal Mashburn, the All-American.
Right side over to Mashburn. One-on-one underneath. When goes up, puts a shot in. Good, and he's fouled. Mashburn.
Mash's monster effort kept Kentucky close. But when he fouled out, it marked the end of the Wildcats' run and Mashburn's spectacular tournament career.
Being at the Final Four was something special because it makes you the last 4 teams to play. We looked forward to it, and it was a goal for us, and we reached it.
The dunk during the game takes a lot of practice and a lot of will and a lot of determination.
That's quick enough to get around my defender, and if you can finish the play off with a dunk, then you got a very high percentage shot.
Phi Slamma Jamma played the game at the atmosphere that no one else did.
I remember Phi Slamma Jamma, they were incredible. I was in high school then, and everybody would be talking about them when they're getting ready to play.
It was a big fraternity that time in college.
Rarely had the NCAA championship seen a high-flying act like the one led by Houston's Clyde Drexler.
And they call him Clyde the Glide because he'd take off, when I'd play him on the high post, he might take one step and be at the basket dunking it.
Clyde Drexler was the guy who could glide forever. He almost defied gravity at times.
To me, I'm struggling, but to someone looking, they may think, boy, it looks pretty easy.
Drexler's teammate, Akeem Olajuwon, made things look easy too.
He made such incredible strides as a player between his freshman year, where he basically had a better opportunity to punt the ball in the basket than to make a shot, to what he became as a sophomore and then what he became as a junior. His strides of improvement were so incredible.
With Clyde and Akeem, the Cougars reached the first of 3 consecutive Final Fours in 1982, where they faced North Carolina.
Had a remarkable shot that time.
But the Cougars were stopped one step away from the finals. The Tar Heels soared in the second half. Despite the tough loss, Houston's championship dreams were far from over.
Akeem really started to develop in February of 1983. He just became a sensation.
Olajuwon's stellar play lifted Houston to a second Final Four, where they faced Louisville.
That was a game full of hype. The Doctors of Dunk versus Phi Slamma Jamma.
Both teams blocking shots and both teams pressing, both teams getting some steals. It was truly a great bunch of athletes. It was a dunking exhibition, but it was some great defense, great plays. It was just a great ball game to watch.
In a wild game played way above the rim, the Cougars outjumped and outdunked the Cardinals to earn a spot in the championship game.
I think our defense rose to the occasion. We got a couple of easy feeds for dunks, and then we started to get the steals for dunks.
But in what would be Drexler's final game, North Carolina State shocked everyone.
I fell on the floor. I couldn't believe it. And the crowd was, the game was over. He didn't have a second chance. It was over.
As a senior, Akeem did get a second championship chance against Patrick Ewing in Georgetown in 1984. Once again, Phi Slamma Jamma came up a few dunks short, but it was a great run.
Just the whole environment, it's wonderful. I mean, I'm so glad to experience life like that.
Those were great years. Had a phenomenal time. Was able to play under one of the best coaches of all times, Guy Lewis, with some of the best players of all times, at a great institution. So that's a very memorable experience.
From its first NCAA championship in 1964 to the titles that followed, UCLA firmly established itself as a basketball dynasty.
Most athletes want the pressure on them to continue the success that UCLA had already accomplished before I ever got there. In fact, that pressure, that success was something that I wanted to be a part of.
Between practices, I worried a little bit about him because he was anti-establishment at that time and did cause me some few problems away from practice, but on the floor, perfect, just perfect.
In Walton's first season, the Bruins were perfect.
We were expected at UCLA to win the championship, and nothing less than an undefeated season and the NCAA championship was acceptable, and that was fine with us. We liked that pressure. Coach Wooden taught us how to think like champions, act like champions, behave like champions. Eventually, we became champions.
That happened in Walton's inaugural season when UCLA won the 1972 national championship.
Bill was at his best when the pressure was on. He loved the big games. He loved competition, and he responded to it.
You could get up the ball and get those rebounds, plus had a good feel for a big man. You could make great passes out of the pivot. You could be almost like a point guard playing the pivot.
When he could block a shot, and in theory almost get a blocked shot and an assist, all in one swoop, as it were.
Probably to this day, I've never seen a player have as good an outlet pass on a rebound to trigger a fast break than Bill had.
After we'd gone undefeated, I said that there was a great season. I was very, very proud of them, but next year we're going to be better.
And they were. In 1973, UCLA was undefeated again as the legend of the Big Redhead spread across the country.
Bill Walton was as good a player as I've ever seen play in college. There's just no two ways about it. He was active, he was smart, he was 6'11", he understood how to play, and most of all, he loved to play.
Especially in big games.
UCLA in the blue or dark jerseys, Memphis State in white, the game for the national title.
It was the first time that the NCAA championship game had ever been played on a Monday night. Until that time, and it was always played on Saturday afternoon of the championship game. This was the first year that they switched to the Monday night event, and it was a good time.
And a great performance. On this night, Walton was at his best, hitting shot after shot after shot.
We knew that Memphis State was a team that could really play, and that we had to come out and play our best. I can remember vividly in that game where we'd run the same play 5 or 6, 7, 8 times in a row.
Larry Hollifield and Greg Lee were giving you perfect passes in there. All you had to do, you couldn't dunk, but all you had to do is drop them to the basket.
Greg was in the huddle, and he said to Coach Wooden, "Hey, Coach, how about calling a different play so somebody else can get some shots?" And Coach sort of shook his head and scratched his chin and said, "Why?"
Walton set an NCAA tournament record by hitting a remarkable 21 of 22 shots, and his 44 points led the Bruins to their 7th straight title.
It was all there that night in St. Louis in 1973, and fortunately for us, we responded and walked away with the championship.
The next year, it looked like UCLA would walk away with its 8th until the 74 semifinals, when NC State ended one of the greatest reigns in NCAA history.
That UCLA team was great, and Bill Walton was probably the best college basketball center to ever play the game.
If you took all the great centers that have played, say Chamberlain and Russell and Alcindor, and if you would take every fundamental of the game, offensively and defensively and team, and break them down and then say, grade them on a 1 to 10 basis, I think Bill Walton would rate the highest of any center that ever played.
Bobby Hurley. There's Hurley with a breakaway. Picks up the loose ball and takes it to the glass for two.
He looked like someone's younger brother who was waiting for the JV game to start.
Bob was definitely a reason why Duke has been successful in the last couple of years.
Every time I play against him, he seems to always knock down the three, but the scout report says usually let him shoot.
He was a winner. He was a competitor. He was an achiever.
He won a lot of games, and Bobby was a leader, and I think all the little guys were attracted to him.
He was a great player to play with because he understood the game.
Over to Hurley, three-pointer.
If they see me diving on the floor, then they're more inclined to do the same thing. To find someone and make a real creative pass is something that I like to do more than anything else. My ability to shoot the ball is something that helped me a lot, but being able to beat my man and get to the basket and create offense is real important.
Bobby Hurley began his incredible NCAA championship career with his first Final Four in 1990, when he guided Duke past Arkansas and into the championship final. But against UNLV, he was less than spectacular.
At some points, I was just dribbling out there and couldn't find anybody to pass the ball to. They were really ready to play us, and they gave it to us. Yeah, it was tough for me to get back into playing basketball after that. It really knocked me back.
That bothered him a lot because he was terrific. He had a great freshman year.
Back in the Final Four as a sophomore, Hurley and Duke got revenge on UNLV on the Devils' way to capturing the national title.
He hit the biggest shot in the history of Duke basketball. His three-point shot that cut the lead from 76-71 to 76-74.
It was a thing where I was seeing the game slip away a little bit, and it just happened that someone gave me a nice setup pass, and I was able to shoot the three and hit it, and it was real fortunate it went in.
We still have one more! We have one more! We have one more!
A lot of it was for each guy who was on the team, but also for the whole program in general that had been to the Final Four so many times and hadn't been able to do it, and I think everyone kind of shared in that first championship. We did kind of cruise a lot through the season.
Three-pointer, yes!
We just had a lot of talent on our team.
Enough talent to edge Kentucky in the regional finals and advance once again to the Final Four. There against Indiana, Hurley was nearly unstoppable.
Nails his second one of the game.
We needed a lot of point production out of somebody, and he gave it to us.
Bobby's 26 points lifted the Blue Devils into the championship game against Michigan.
Hurley was a young guy that you look at and you say, well, he's not that good until you play against him.
Michigan soon found out just how good Hurley was as he led the Devils to their second national title.
It wasn't as good as the first one, but I think because of the long season we had with the pressure and everyone wondering if we'd be able to do it, the fact that we were able to get through it all and still win it was a great feeling.
Bobby Hurley was a good leader, great passer, great assist man. Bobby is as tough a competitor as I've seen in a long time.
In a second-round loss to Cal that year, Hurley was as tough as ever, but his brilliant career was over.
I played with great players, and that's been a big reason why I've been so successful. But I just think that when it's crunch time, I've been there all the time, and I made some big plays for the team, and I think that's why I have that label.
You can critique his game however you want, but Bobby Hurley wins. Bobby's had a storybook career, and I'm glad I'm part of the story.
The The 1982 championship between Georgetown and North Carolina came down to one final shot. And when that shot was launched, so too was the great career of Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan was skinny. He was one of those guys that was recruited but wasn't the guy that everybody wanted. But there's some abilities there that you can't coach. God blessed him with tremendous athletic skills. But that desire, the competitiveness is what sets Michael apart from everyone else. In other words, he wants to beat you at everything he does, whether it's golf, marbles, checkers, pool. Almost had kind of a nasty streak to him. The best competitor just hates to lose.
Jordan trying to rough Robinson off. Look at his quickness. He wants it, doesn't he? Oh, what a play.
The thing that sets Jordan apart was his competitive nature. When the game was on the line, he always found a way to make the big play.
Jordan has turned on those crowds.
His freshman year, you could tell that he had the ability to create just about anything he needed, anything he wanted.
You can't stop Michael Jordan one-on-one. You couldn't do it then, you can't do it now.
He would lock up 2 or 3 year plays if he's so concerned about it, because he could do so many things. He could drive, pull up quick.
I mean, it was a source of pride to go on the floor and play against the Michael Jordan.
Very seldom have I sat on the bench coaching against someone and had the guy make a move that I literally have to say, God, that was a great move. I mean, you can't help but applaud.
He was one of those guys that you really, when you were a player, you suited up, you went out, you looked across the floor, there's Michael Jordan. You knew you were in the big time.
Before 1982, North Carolina was always tough to beat in the NCAA tournament. And with Michael Jordan added to the mix, its success continued. During his 3 years at Carolina, the Heels never exited the tournament before the round of 16. But it was in 1982 as a freshman that Michael and a talented group of upperclassmen made a serious run at the national title.
We had 4 returning starters, and then we had the freshman named Michael Jordan come in at 6'3", and 6'4" maybe, and try to make a guard out of him as a freshman.
We didn't look at stat sheets after the games. Coach Smith wouldn't let us. We didn't care who scored. Any one of those guys, except probably myself, could average about 25 points a game. So it was nice. The unselfishness, the competitiveness, we had great chemistry, I thought.
Against Houston in the national semifinal, Jordan contributed 18 points as the Heels advanced to the championship against Georgetown.
I think the game epitomized competition. You know, I thought you were 2 teams that had a great deal of respect for one another, and 2 teams that you knew had come to the game to win the game.
With half a minute to go, the game was still up for grabs.
When they came over to the bench with the timeout, it was the first time that the thought hit me, we might lose the game. And Coach was so positive in the huddle, it was just incredible. This is what we're going to do, and if they cover that, we'll do this. If they cover that, we still have this.
For some odd reason, Coach Smith thought that Michael may be the one. Being a freshman, they might want to put the pressure on him a little bit. And Michael's the type of guy who wants the shot anyway. You know, even as a freshman, you know, he wanted to take the shot.
Jordan!
And they got the ball in, I think, to Doherty at the foul line, who rotated it to the opposite side. Michael was over near their bench, and the kids ran out after him, and, you know, he just buried it.
That was a tremendous shot with a lot of pressure, too, and he nailed it. I mean, it wasn't even close.
He took a shot that probably dictated the rest of our lives, in a sense.
It was the single greatest moment in Jordan's great tournament career.